All right, the big brother around here is the man to my right. He is Rick Nash, the legendary Blue Jacket, with us. Good to see you, my man.
Hey, good to be here.
Thanks for coming out. You dressed warm, so that's good.
Yeah, it seems like I'm living in an arena these days, and I'm just cold all the time.
If you're cold, then I know we're freezing. That's for sure, because you grew up in it. But good to have you. 25th anniversary. You're coming off a season where, boy, they pushed it all the way to the brink, didn't they? They got within 2 points. They had to make that run. And the funny thing, Rick, is they made it with a goalie that a lot of us didn't know about prior with Jet Greaves. Is that the biggest headline of this year's team, that battle in net, in your mind?
Well, I think it's definitely one of them. With Jet, obviously, we've been watching him for a lot of years now and kind of knew what he could do. But anytime you have healthy competition, I feel like within a training camp, it kind of brings the best out of everybody. So, so far it's been a real positive of our first couple exhibition games have been the goaltending.
In football, they say, like, the locker room knows. Like, they know who's the guy. Does this room kind of know, or do they just kind of feed off the battle a little bit? Because obviously it's different than football, but I'm just curious if the guys in the room get a sense on this could be the guy, like when you're talking about Jet.
Yeah, well, I think once the season starts, I agree with you. I think they'll figure it out who the guy is once the season kind of gets going and someone grabs the the handlebars of the season and plays better than the other. But Elvis is a competitive guy, and he's been with us for a while, and he was obviously a player that we watched develop into an NHL goalie. So I feel like it's going to be a healthy competition. But to answer your question, when you see these teams that go on playoff runs and win Stanley Cups, it's usually the room knows who the main man is, and I think we'll find that out as the season continues on.
Rick, you went through a bunch of these, training camps, preseason games, exhibitions, ramp up to the season as a player, and I know that's about finding your rhythm and getting the rust off, but how does the perspective change when you are, sitting up here and got the permit chill going on and trying to evaluate what the roster is going to look like? You've been in those skates before. You know what they're trying to accomplish. How does that compare to what you guys try to maybe get done in the front office when you're watching instead of playing?
Yeah, it's a good question because for everyone it's different, right? For probably a Zach Werenski, he's probably thinking to get the the rust off a bit, get his timing back, get back in game shape. Kent Johnson, Adam Fantilli, that are still young guys in the league. They probably want to prove themselves even more to escalate to a superstar and an all-star in this league, and then. You got other guys that are kind of bubble guys like a Luca Del Bel Blues, Mikael Putia, these guys are trying to make the team, and every single game matters, every single shift, every single period. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at these preseason games, and I think as your career goes on, it might change a bit how you approach them. But for me, towards the end of my career, it was about getting back in shape and getting my timing back on the ice. And earlier in my career was to prove that I belong.
When you mentioned Zach Werenski, I almost feel like he's certainly not taken for granted in Columbus, but it feels like sometimes the national attention and national coverage of him doesn't take into account how really productive he's been and how critical he is to the Blue Jackets. When you're watching him, what is it that sets him apart? Why is he such an integral part of what you guys have built here?
Yeah, well, he's definitely a top 5, top 3 NHL defender. What he brings to us is a bit of offense, a lot of defense. He quarterbacks our power play. He plays in all situations. So on a national level. It probably has a lot to do with our team winning and being in the playoffs too. Lots of those national playoff games are televised where they can see a player like Zach. I do think if he was in a market like Toronto or New York, he would be a.
Let's not put that out there.
Yeah. No, we don't want guys leaving for New York, right?
No.
So
that's a good one.
Thanks.
Well played, Rick.
With Zach, I think that ties into your question that why he's not kind of the face of the NHL, but won gold at the World Championships last summer, and we're hoping he's going to be a huge part of that Olympic team, and not only bringing Zach to the national level, but the Blue Jackets as well. And if we keep making the playoffs consistently, then I think that'll happen.
Let's go to Adam Fantilli. I'm looking at the stats here. What a breakout. 31 goals, 54 points. A lot of shots, a lot of hits. He was almost better in the second half, too. I mean, he was electric. 24 goals, 39 points in 44 games. We go from, like, New Year on. And his ceiling as a superstar seems like he is ready to break right through that glass.
Yeah, I think he's ready to pop. You know, you saw those numbers. They obviously speak for themselves, but his game's come a long way in the defensive zone too. And I think you know, when you kind of scoreboard watch and stat sheet watch, the numbers are the first thing that jump out. But when you're going to the games, as you know, to see him play as a complete 200-foot player, he's hard on the pucks, he's hard on the forecheck, he's finishing his checks. So for me, that's what's been the most impressive, is that he's going to be a player that if this team is going to be good for the next the next little bit, that he's going to have to keep going the way he is.
You're still pushing the top players to be your best players, like all sports, right? Dean leans on those guys, and if your team is driven by the top players, is it not?
I think it has to be. I think no matter what sport you watch. Hockey's no different. You know, you have your core group of 5 or 6 guys, and if they're not your best guys, you're probably not making the playoffs. You know, playoffs is a bit different when it's a 7-game series. You can have chipping in from every line, but when you play in an 82-game season, I believe your best players have to be your best.
Rick, there's I can't really believe it that it's 25 years. There's a ton of celebration stuff that's planned for this year. I don't know all the details. You said you don't either. But part of it will be, celebrating your legacy, a bunch of your teammates. I wonder for you specifically, when you think about where this franchise is, the longevity that's had now, and then you walk in the barn and you see a 61 hanging from the rafters. Does that ever feel how did that happen for you? That's such a thing that very few people ever accomplish, having a number hanging up like that. When you see it, when family, friends see that, what does it mean?
Yeah, you know what's funny is I actually never get used to it, and every time I walk in, I kind of look up there. It honestly is, one of the coolest achievements that I feel like I've accomplished. It's the fun thing about it is when we come here with my family and my kids, to a concert, or I brought my kids to WWE, which was a blast, but and it's still hanging up there, and the kids the kids look up there, and it's. I mean, I'm so honored, and as I said when I did my speech for that, that's not an individual award. It's everyone I ever played with and everyone that ever worked for the organization. But as we talk about the 25 years, there's some tough years in there. But as I think we've grown the game a lot in Columbus, and I think there's also some positives.
Yeah, first overall pick, man. You were here almost from the very beginning. You were the first one ever to wear 61. Obviously, you'll be the last. And so that legacy will always be there. I think that this team has the hunger from last year. But as I was mentioning at the beginning of the show, Rick, that unfortunately they came together through tragedy. And that emotion, I think, drove them in Johnny's memory. How about this year? How about do they have to separate that? Is this brand new? It's always in the back of your mind, I imagine, but the fuel is not the same, I think, as it was last year.
Yeah, you're right. It's a great question that you ask because and you said Johnny will always be in the back of our heads. He'll always be a part of this organization, and he'll always be remembered by everyone that he was involved with. And in saying that, the guys really bonded, and had an emotional start to the season, and it was tough, and we went through a bunch of injuries. It's not like a professional athlete should have to find motivation, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
This is a sport, this is a game, but this is also our job, right? And we're expected to play for our city, we're expected to play for our fans, and to play for ownership. So. I don't think we're going to have a moment that we can rally around, but Johnny will always be remembered, and I think the Blue Jackets will always play for him. But we're expecting obviously a big year, hopefully.
Do you have the horses this year defensively? We talked about Z. I know that Don goes back in the 11th hour and gets Provy and signs him to that big contract. We're going to have Dante Fabro on, who's playing in the top line tonight with Z. Damon, certainly, that's a contract. You want to give this guy a chance to skate out of this and get to be an impactful guy. But give me your sense on, if you got to win in this league, you have to defend. And I just want to know, do you feel you have the horses?
Yeah, well, it's interesting as you work yourself. I always like to work myself out from the net, and it seems like we got a healthy battle going there. And as we break down our defensemen, it seems like we're in a good spot. Obviously Zach and Dante had some chemistry last year. I feel like Zach's a good enough player that he can kind of play with anyone up and down that lineup. Obviously, Goodbranson was hurt last year for a big chunk of it. So we have to get Damon back on track and playing the way that we know he can. I also don't think we've seen the ceiling of Denton Matejchuk either,
sure.
And he's obviously going to be a bigger part of this coming forward. We have Jake Christensen, who realistically is still a young guy in this league and still kind of finding his ground. So there's a lot of options there. I think teams can always get better and improve, but for starting the season, I hope that our D-core can stay healthy and we'll get a great evaluation of them if that's the case.
Austin was asking about the 25th anniversary OAR.
Do you play a musical instrument, Rick? You're going to be on stage next Friday night?
I'd be too cold. I'd be shaking. I couldn't play any. No, I don't.
A job swap. They play hockey. You get up on stage and play some songs. But I know you are planning on being there.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be a great event. Obviously, we struck up a good friendship with the OAR guys with my time in New York, and obviously with all their ties with Ohio State, it's been an incredible friendship. And that concert's on October 3rd. And I think you can still get tickets at bluejackets/oar.com. I think they're still out there, but it's going to be a fun event to kick off the 25th anniversary season. And then, believe it or not, on Sunday, I think we're all getting on skates, and we're going to play a hockey game over at the Ice House down here at Nationwide. And all sales and, all money raised is going to go to the Gaudreau Family Foundation. So we're looking forward to a great weekend, a great kickoff to the season, and especially giving back to Johnny and his foundation, who will always be in our hearts.
Historic year, 25 for the Jackets. Hope it's a great one. The legendary Rick Nash with us. Thanks, my man. Bring the space heaters next time. All right?
Hey, always good talking to you guys. Thank you.
61 in the building with us here. We'll come back, and Dion still playing daddy. I'll give you those details next. Rothman and Ice on the Fan. Wake up.